There's new minimum energy efficiency standards on the way for the private rented sector. These were part of the Energy Act 2012. The regulations were laid just before the 2015 general election and take effect, the bulk of them take effect from 2018. It's a major change for landlords who will now have to meet minimum standards or not be able to rent their property. From April 2018, privately rented properties will need to have a minimum energy performance certificate rating of E. F and G properties will no longer be able to be legally let on new tenancies from 2018, and it will apply to all tenancies, including existing tenancies, from 2020. Now that's only a year away, and in order to meet that E rating, it might require some substantial works. In the past, we've had a number of different schemes offering support to landlords with varying degrees of success and uptake. The Green Deal is probably the best known of those. Of course, the government has wound up the Green Deal investment bank. However, there are still a number of providers who have pockets of Green Deal funding available, and recently the government has made some announcements about the possibility of Green Deal funding being available again in the shorter term. But there's also the ECO scheme, the energy company obligations, and that's where energy companies pay an element of the profit in order to fund energy efficiency schemes. Now, those schemes aren't restricted to the private rented sector. They cover owner-occupiers, and they cover also social housing, who hoover up the bulk of that funding, to be fair. But there are still opportunities for landlords, mostly for things like boiler replacements, but there are other energy efficiency measures available through ECO. The government's just announced that ECO is going to be extended for another 18 months, and a lot of this stems out of the uncertainty that's been created through the scrapping of the Green Deal itself. Much of the energy efficiency legislation is tied intimately to the existence of Green Deal funding, and landlords were given a golden rule whereby if there would be no upfront cost to the landlord, and if the improvements cost more than the energy savings over a payback period, then landlords would be exempt from carrying out the works. Of course, if there's no Green Deal funding, then almost every landlord would be exempt. So the government are going to have to think again about the support that goes in place. The talk at the moment is of a £5,000 cap on how much landlords would be expected to spend to bring their properties up to an E standard. And if you had to spend more than that, you would spend what you could up to the cap, and if it didn't get you to an E rating, you'd then be able to register your property as an exemption to the minimum standards. The exemptions register was supposed to start in October last year, but with the uncertainty around the future of the Green Deal, that was extended to October this year. So landlords who think they may qualify for an exemption can start registering from October this year, but of course we don't know what's replacing the Green Deal, so landlords won't know whether they qualify for an exemption yet. We're encouraging the government to offer support to landlords. There used to be the Landlord Energy Saving Allowance, LISA, which allowed a tax break for landlords who spent money on energy efficiency measures. It was a very small amount of money. I think it was only £1,200 or £1,500 annually, and it was scrapped in 2014. Now we're arguing for LISA to be brought back and to be beefed up to give landlords an incentive to meet these minimum standards. We're also calling for energy efficiency improvements that are linked to their energy performance certificate to be given income tax relief at the point of spend. At the moment, energy efficiency works are considered an improvement to the property, they're considered capital spend, and are only recoverable against capital gains tax on sale of the property, and of course at the cost price when the works were carried out. We think that's a real deterrent deterrent to landlords improving the energy efficiency of the property. It'd be much better if these costs could be seen in the say as repair and maintenance, and those costs could be offset against tax at the time the money is spent. So there are a number of things affecting landlords and energy efficiency at the moment. Of course, the key thing about an EPC is you need an EPC to be able to advertise your property legally as well. And you also have to serve an EPC on a new tenancy now at the start of that tenancy if you want to be able to serve a Section 21 successfully. So there's a number of reasons why EPCs are important. It can affect your Section 21 rights. It can actually lead you into trouble in terms of marketing your property if you don't have an EPC, and also, as I say, the minimum energy efficiency standards that take effect from 2018 mean you may not be able to let your property at all if it's not up to that minimum standard. But research shows that it's around 8% of the private rented sector that fails to meet that EPC standard of E, and within that 8%, clearly there'll be a number of properties that will be exempt, either because of the cost of the works. It may be that they're a listed building or are in a conservation area and will need planning permission for the works to be carried out, and that may not be possible. That's another route to an exemption. So there are a number of possibilities where landlords would be able to register an exemption. But of course what we all want to see is improving standards within the sector. We want to see tenants have safe, secure, legal homes that provide affordable warmth all year round. So do take advantage of the schemes that are still available out there to support landlords, be it the remaining Green Deal funding or eco funding. Do what you can to bring your property up to standard, and don't leave it to the last minute. If there's 300,000 properties out there in the private rented sector rated F or G, then if all 300,000 leave it to the last minute, there's going to be a huge rush on energy efficiency installers, and you're not going to meet the deadline.